A former employee of Sean Diddy Combs, testifying under the pseudonym Mia, told jurors that he sexually assaulted her, controlled where she went, even subjected her to violent outbursts, and also made her work around the clock on extended release Adderall. I'm going to talk with Law&Crime's reporter Elizabeth Millner to get the scoop on all of the harrowing details that she shared. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is another Law&Crime legal alert. If you received Depo-Provera birth control shots and were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. That's right, Morgan & Morgan is investigating claims that patients weren't properly warned about this risk. It's free to check, just takes a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on screen, click the link below, or head over to forthepeople.com/LCDepo to see if you qualify. What a day in court. What a day in court in the Sean Combs criminal trial. So before we even get to the idea that a new alleged victim has taken the stand using the pseudonym Mia, and there's a lot to get into there was something that happened at the beginning of the day. A witness, a celebrity stylist, finished their testimony, and it was really interesting what the defense did. So I'm not going to do this alone. I want to bring on Elizabeth Millner, Law&Crime's reporter, who has been in that courtroom not only today for every minute of the testimony in action. She has been there every day of this trial. Elizabeth, always so good to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know people look forward to your recaps. We got to start with Deontay Nash, an important witness who testified earlier in the trial, testified about the abuse that he allegedly observed of Cassie Ventura, testified about intervening, trying to stop Sean Combs from attacking her, also testified that he observed threats that were made against Cassie Ventura, but he was under cross-examination by Xavier Donaldson today. What was the theme of the cross-examination? Were they trying to hit on any kind of discrepancies or inconsistencies in his testimony? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was interesting kind of what the direction of the cross-examination was really going to. Even on day one of Deontay Nash's cross-examination, that trickled into day two, which is today. And so even right off the bat this morning, Xavier Donaldson asked Deontay Nash, "Good morning, how are you?" And Deontay responded, "Blessed." So I was like thinking, okay, how's the mood gonna be during this testimony? But it really was kind of a little bit of all over the place. For example, we saw a text message exhibit that was taken down pretty quickly. None of us in the gallery were able to kind of even comprehend what was kind of going on, what the point of this message was to be shown to Deontay and then just be brought down just immediately afterwards. Then he was asked a little bit about Capricorn Clark, and specifically in 2011, and Deontay was asked whether or not she was kind of the creative, and Deontay responded that she didn't necessarily work on Cassie's mixtape around this time. Then they kind of get into Cassie wearing her hair in a certain style at the MTV VMA Awards. It was a green, she had like this neon green hair color, and if you remember from Capricorn Clark's testimony on Tuesday, she kind of took ownership of making Cassie into that look. For example, it's pretty much saying that she was trying to bring Cassie into the future. This was coming after Cassie had been rocking the kind of half-shaved head for a while, and so Capricorn Clark, while on the stand, was like, "Oh, this is my idea. I wanted to bring her into the next level, into the future, and give her a new look." Whereas Deontay, when he was on the stand today, was just explaining that this was a group decision that was made amongst a lot of people within the staff. So then we kind of get into a little bit more of what had happened to Cassie as far as the bed framing incident. For example, Deontay Nash was asked, "You spoke with prosecutors about this incident," and Deontay responded, "Yeah, you didn't tell prosecutors that Diddy kept kicking Cassie while she was bleeding." And Deontay responded, "I gave as little as possible. I only answered what I was asked." And again, Deontay made it very clear at the beginning of his testimony that he didn't want to be testifying in the first place. He was subpoenaed to testify, didn't want to be doing this, something that a lot of other witnesses have also said the same thing about. Then we kind of get into the 2015 Revolt conference that happened in Miami. And this was kind of a big issue this morning, or not a big issue, but this was kind of a big point because it kind of has to do with Michael B. Jordan in a sense, because Deontay said he was over in Miami styling Lil' Kim while Cassie was over in South Africa with Mia shooting the movie Honey 3, and that was the same movie that Michael B. Jordan was in. And so Deontay was asked, was she able to do movies while signed to Bad Boy? And he responded, sometimes. He was asked, Mr. Combs signed a contract to let Cassie do this movie, and Deontay responded, correct. And so it seems like Deontay was kind of interrupting Xavier Donaldson at some points, and he just came out of the blue and just said, yeah, I was trying to hook her up with Michael B. Jordan, because if Diddy's doing his thing in Miami, why can't Cassie do her thing over in South Africa? And what was Diddy's thing that he was doing in Miami? Well, he was spotted with Gina. And Deontay revealed that it wasn't Deontay who told Cassie this information, that it was actually another stylist who had relayed to Cassie something along the lines of, oh, girl, you look good with Diddy today. And Cassie's like, what are you talking about? Because Cassie's over in South Africa shooting a movie, and the person that was actually being referred to was actually Gina. And again, it was a point where Cassie had said, well, she was testifying that Gina was really kind of this point of contention between herself and Diddy because she was always around. Whereas Deontay was kind of explaining that Cassie, you know, really didn't care about Gina and everything like that, because at the time they two were broken up, and Cassie did kind of verify that too. And so Deontay was asked about Cassie's other relationships, about dating an NBA player and a football player. And there was kind of a moment in the courtroom today where Deontay was asked, Cassie was in a relationship with Andre Branch, and Deontay's like, no, I don't think so. And then he paused for a second and was like, oh, wait, you mean the cute football player? And then all the courtroom pretty much erupted with laughter. So it was kind of one of those moments where Deontay's personality really kind of shined through during the testimony, maybe something that doesn't necessarily translate as well to the transcript. And so we saw another exhibit photo of a text message between Deontay and Cassie about Michael B. Jordan, where Deontay essentially was saying, be calm and ignore, pretty much saying that Cassie wasn't pressed about Gina, and that Cassie and Deontay would go out together to restaurants while she was on a break with Diddy, because I think the defense was trying to imply that Cassie was just partying all over and was doing things outside of Diddy's presence. But Deontay was kind of like, no, we're calm people. For the most part, we just go out to restaurants together, and that's what we kind of do. And so then we kind of get into the post-Intercontinental Hotel incident in March of 2016, where we see a text exhibit between Deontay and Cassie around that time, and Deontay's kind of commenting on just the look of her face, that type of sort. And I think what the defense was trying to do was kind of point out that Cassie didn't have maybe bruises or injuries to her face while the two were exchanging these text messages. And for the most part, it seemed like from the messages that Cassie was giving, or Cassie was sending to Deontay, she was saying things like, this guy's tripping, we did the same drugs, and I'm trying to keep him from embarrassing himself. And Deontay was like, well, just fake sleep. Then the defense tried to kind of point out that, didn't Cassie say she didn't want to go to this hotel during this incident? And Deontay responded, well, not this time, but she has told me before that she hasn't wanted to go to these hotels. Then they kind of talk about Cassie keeping secrets from her friends, whether or not she was revealing to her friends just every ounce of her life, including points about whether or not she had told Deontay that she was kind of participating in these freak-offs with other men, and that these videos that were threatened to be released, that they involved other men and not particularly Diddy being shown on these videos. And so I think the big sticking point that the defense was trying to do was just that Cassie was keeping secrets from Deontay. And Deontay kind of countered that, where he was like, look, I don't tell my friends every single thing and aspect of my life, but that's just what we do. We're not up each other's behind in a sense, like that they kind of let each other breathe, and they don't tell every single ounce and facet of each other's lives. But from the defense perspective, it seemed like they were trying to drive home the point that Cassie kept secrets, and she wasn't very forthcoming with people even very close to her.
So a couple things there. First of all, when you mentioned Gina, just so everybody knows, we believe that to be alleged victim number 3 in this case, who, by all accounts, and we did a previous sidebar on it, may not testify in this case. There has been difficulty, it seems, from the prosecution getting a hold of her or attorney. There was a back and forth last week between defense counsel and prosecutors about whether or not she's even a part of the case anymore. Just want to make that clear, and the defense has been really hitting upon the fact that Gina, they've been characterizing Combs' relationship with Cassie not as one of a victim and a sex trafficker, but a domestic violence relationship, that there was a tumultuous relationship, it was a toxic relationship, it was filled with love, anger, jealousy, but that he wasn't controlling her or beating her up to force her into these coerced sexual performances, but really this was just a really bad relationship. And I agree. I think what they've really been trying to do is assassinate Cassie's character, that she's not trustworthy, that she is shady, that she manipulated Combs, that she can't be trusted. So I see what they're doing here. There was a part of his cross-examination where they talk about his connection to Cassie and that she didn't reveal these alleged freak-offs to him, until years later, and that she's still in touch with him. I mean, I even heard testimony today, that he helped design or style what she wore to court. So talk to us a little bit more about what she told him regarding the alleged freak-offs, and also that they're still in touch, which I guess goes to his credibility, right? The defense would say he's doing anything and saying anything to protect her.
Right, and that was something that Deontay revealed on day one of his testimony, that he does still keep in touch with Cassie. He was the one who actually revealed to open court yesterday that Cassie had delivered her third child with her now husband, Alex Fine. And so as far as just the messages go between Cassie and Deontay, even while she was testifying, even a little bit after she was testifying, it really had to do with what Deontay does best, and that's styling. Essentially, Cassie was reaching out to Deontay because she didn't know what to wear to court, because again, she was very pregnant around this time, about 8.5 months, and nothing was fitting her. And that was what Deontay was kind of explaining as far as why the two were communicating, especially while Cassie was on the stand, while she was testifying in court during week one of trial. And then during the cross-examination, the defense was trying to kind of point out that Cassie was keeping this huge secret from Deontay, again, that being her stylist, but also one of her very, very close friends and best friends too, just essentially about why she was participating in these freak-offs. And Cassie didn't actually reveal this to Deontay until 2013. And so the defense was like, so from 2008 to 2013, Cassie just didn't say anything to you, kept this big secret. And Deontay was explaining that, yeah, it was okay. And I was thinking to myself, maybe she just didn't reveal it because likely she was embarrassed, or likely how often do we talk about our intimate moments and every single detail of them with our best friends. And so I thought that was an interesting point that the defense was trying to go for, as far as, again, kind of going into the tune of Cassie keeping secrets and being secretive about her life. But maybe it was just a situation where she didn't feel comfortable sharing this, or maybe didn't think other people would understand. And so, yes, the defense was definitely trying to kind of say that Cassie was keeping this secret for years on end, and that she didn't reveal this until years into their friendship, as opposed to, I guess, telling Deontay right off the bat.
Wasn't there also a point of cross-examination when they were challenging Nash about still staying in touch with Sean Combs? So the guy that allegedly not only attacked Cassie, but he also testified that he was on the receiving end of physical abuse as well. So didn't he stay in touch with Sean Combs?
Right. He did stay in touch with Sean Combs even after he stopped his professional relationship with Puffy, or Puff as he calls him on the witness stand. But yes, towards the end of his cross-examination, that's when the defense was bringing out Deontay's text messages to Diddy. Specifically, we saw text messages between Diddy and Deontay in October of 2018. So this was after Cassie and him broke up. Cassie was already dating Alex Fine, her now husband at this point. But I think also, interestingly enough, this was after the alleged rape that had happened, and unclear whether or not Cassie revealed that part to Deontay. That wasn't talked about during cross-examination or any of his testimony today or even yesterday. And so Diddy asked Deontay to call him. He said, "Call me, no drama." Deontay responded, "I just got here. She's sleeping." And Diddy responded something along the lines of, because again, these text messages go so fast sometimes, that Diddy asked, "Can you wake her up? Is she okay?" And I think the defense was trying to imply that Diddy still was caring about Cassie, was still checking up on her. But Deontay reached out to Diddy, or Puffy, Puff Daddy, just about Kim Porter, who is the mother of some of his children, after her death that also happened in 2018, and that Deontay had reached out to Diddy after Andre Harrell's death, and that was Diddy's mentor, somebody that really kind of showed Diddy the ropes in a sense professionally as he was kind of coming up. I think he had even interned for Andre Harrell at some point, and then worked with him before Diddy went off to do Bad Boy and his own record label. Then we saw messages from January 19th of 2019 again. So we're months after Cassie and Diddy broke up with one another, but Diddy was upset with Deontay that he being Deontay, didn't tell Diddy that Cassie was seeing the trainer. And who is the trainer? The trainer is Alex Fine, that being Cassie's now husband. And so Diddy was still asking at this point, and during this text message, asking how Cassie was doing, and essentially was saying something along the lines of, it's all good between you and me, bro, and putting some laughing emojis in there. But it seemed like he was kind of upset that Cassie was seeing, and he referred to Alex Fine as the trainer. And so then we see another exhibit, this one the year after, so May 9th of 2020, where Deontay sent a message to Diddy saying, I love you, brother. If you need anything, I got you. And I thought it was interesting that they brought up this particular message, right? Because Deontay has talked at length about witnessing Diddy being violent towards Cassie, even at points being violent towards him himself. But still at some points, Deontay was reaching out to Diddy to say everything's all good and there's love between the two. And I think that's something that the defense has done pretty often, where they're kind of using other people's text messages to show that people still, in a way, cared about Diddy, and that he wasn't this mean, angry monster. He was just kind of in this bad relationship because people were still reaching out to him even after he did all these horrible things. And so that was kind of towards the end of the cross-examination, right before Donaldson had asked Deontay essentially about Cassie keeping secrets and that sort.
And he's not the only witness who was questioned about this. Capricorn Clark was questioned, his former assistant, who really helps with the kidnapping, right? The underlying charge of kidnapping for racketeering. She was questioned about why she continued working with Combs, the man who allegedly kidnapped her and threatened her. So these are difficult questions for the jury to ultimately sort through. Okay, now we have to move on to the second witness of the day. And this is a major witness. So this person is testifying under the pseudonym Mia. This is a woman who we believe is listed out as victim 4 in this case. She is a former employee of Sean Combs. And before we even get into what she describes as horrific sexual abuse, I want to get into what she described as the working conditions and how she started her employment, because I believe that this will help support the forced labor allegation, one of the underlying predicate crimes for racketeering. So again, I know I say this so many times, but it's complicated. Just want to lay it out one more time. In order to prove racketeering, there are a number of underlying crimes: sex trafficking, forced labor, arson, bribery, kidnapping. It seems to me, and I could be wrong, that her testimony would help support forced labor. Am I right? Because what did she describe about her working conditions?
Yeah, and I think she kind of echoed a little bit of what other witnesses who have worked under Diddy's employment have also said, where it was essentially a 24/8 job, to the point where it wasn't 24/7. They were always on call, always had to be near Diddy. But it was interesting kind of seeing Mia inside the courtroom, because yes, I can see Mia inside the courtroom. Unfortunately for our viewers, you guys cannot see Mia, nor will I get too much into the description of what she looked like or anything of that. But I will say this just about Mia being on the stand, is that she was very soft-spoken. She was very apprehensive while answering some of the questions, where you could just really feel her nerves just through her voice and her tone while she was testifying. Even as she walked to the witness stand, and even while she was on the witness stand, she kept her head down. She didn't even really look at the prosecutor who was asking her questions, and that was Madison Smizer. She really just seemed just so shaken and nervous just about testifying inside that courtroom. But as far as testifying just about what it was like working with Diddy, so she had explained that she did work as a personal assistant and later worked as kind of the director of development over at Revolt Film, which is a little bit different from Revolt TV. But according to her, she said the work environment always depended on Diddy's mood. She described it as it was toxic, it was chaotic, but it was also exciting. But she said the highs were very high and the lows were very low. Soon the Madison Smizer is asking her how Diddy was, as far as did he protrude violence onto her, and she explained that Diddy would throw things at her, throw her up against the wall, slammed her arm into a door, and sexually assaulted her more than once. But just as far as even her being interviewed for the job position, she said she was first interviewed by Tony Fletcher, who was the chief of staff at the time. We see an exhibit photo of Tony Fletcher inside the gallery. And then she did an interview with Diddy. And it was interesting just hearing her kind of describing her first interview with Diddy. She said that Diddy was in his underwear when she went over to his apartment for this interview. She had explained that Diddy's stylist, Derek Roche, was also there. And she said that she was so excited, but also very very nervous, but also really eager, because around this time, she's in her 20s. She just is excited to start her career. She had previously worked for other high-profile individuals, such as Mike Myers and Georgina Chapman. But as far as working for Diddy, she said that there were a lot of jokes about working 24/7. And initially she thought it was just that, working 24/7, because she said when she worked as an assistant for Mike Myers, that she had worked from 10 to 6. So definitely within the confines of just a normal workday schedule. But she said that as far as her salary goes, that when she was first hired on, it was about $50,000. And again, she thought that she'd be working 40 hours a week, and she had explained that she was not working 40 hours a week. She said even on her first day of the job, the HR for Bad Boy, this person's name is Vashta, gave me a kind of a trial period, and said that she might not even possibly meet Diddy until 2 weeks into the job, because this was a trial period. They were going to see if she's going to work out, if she was a good fit, that type of thing. But she actually kind of met Diddy early on. She began over at Diddy's place at Alpine, New Jersey, and was ordered to do inventory, and said that she didn't make it home that night because Diddy wanted her in the studio. And she said she stayed in that studio with Diddy until 1 p.m. the next day. So a night of no sleep. And she said she didn't sleep for 24 more hours, and thought this was all just kind of a part of the trial period. I guess there was there was this reality show kind of in the mid 2000s-ish, where it was like, I Want to Work for Diddy, where it was this reality show where people just did that, where they kind of competed to work for Diddy. And she thought it was kind of like that. So that's what she had thought, that this was only for the trial period. She knew it was going to be hard work, but she didn't realize it would be that much hard work. And so she said that she would go without sleep often. She said the longest she went without sleep is 5 days. And let me just say this, Jesse, if I get less than 6 hours of sleep, I'm already cranky the next day. So for her to go 5 days with no sleep, I think maybe the longest I've gone without sleep was back in college when I was studying for an exam. But according to Mia, this was all just a part of her regular life, and she used things like Adderall because she said she had a prescription for it in order to stay awake for those days on end. She said she ended up having a physical breakdown after so much exhaustion, to the point where she was having trouble hearing, she was having trouble keeping her balance, and then to the point where she even just burst into tears and hysterically began to cry. And Diddy told her at that point that she could finally sleep. And so I think that was just one of the instances where they're kind of explaining, I think very well, that this was a job that was just around the clock, to the point where people were risking their health and risking just their mental health, their emotional health, their physical health in order to do their job.
What was this list that was shown to jurors? I think it was from November 2011, and if I'm right about what this is, it could be important for the racketeering charge, right? I say this again, if you're going to be charging, if you're going to charge Sean Combs with racketeering, that he's operating this criminal enterprise, conspiracy to commit racketeering, conspiracy to further criminal activity, he can't do it alone. He might be the only one charged, but there's got to be other people who are part of it. The staff, the assistants, the bodyguards, so you need them to testify. And it doesn't necessarily mean they all took deals or they're all guilty of something. That's not the point. We have to understand what this organization was like. If we understand, for example, we heard earlier from an assistant at the beginning of the trial that this was Sean Combs' kingdom, that helps prove there's an overarching criminal enterprise, there's a common purpose. What was this list that I understand was shown to the jurors?
Yeah, so this was kind of falling under the umbrella of just all of Mia's responsibilities while she was on the job. And so inside the courtroom, we're seeing this exhibit photo of this text message from Mia to Diddy and other staffers, but this one was private, it was under seal. However, we see another exhibit, and that was just a laundry list of responsibilities, to the point I couldn't write everything down because it was 2 pages long. It was extremely long to read. There were so many words in text, but I do have kind of the gist of what this email entailed. But I just want to give everyone the backstory of why she even sent this email to Tony Fletcher, who was then the chief of staff. And it was because Mia had testified that Diddy had asked her something along the lines of, what the F do you do all day? And so what Mia did was she sent this list to Tony Fletcher, where she said her duties included all of PD, that's how she would refer to Diddy, as PD's social media presence. She also explained that she was the main liaison between PD and Hollywood, PD also referring to Diddy. She said that she was in charge of PD's daily routine, keeping him on schedule, protecting him at all times, staying in PD's eyesight, because that was one sticking point that she made during her testimony, where she said she always had to be near him in some type of fashion. There were times where he would just need everything in the world to be given to him, and then there were other times she would just be standing around him for hours on end, and he wouldn't ask for a thing, but she needed to be within close proximity to him. She explained that this list also included anticipating his moods, and that she had explained that this even dictated the day. I kind of go back to the point where she had explained that every single day is different. He can ask you for 17,000 things, or you can stand next to him again for 22 hours and he wouldn't ask for a thing. And so those were just some of the duties that she listed. But trust me, Jesse, there was so much more, but it just went by so fast I couldn't write every single thing down.
Was there one about cracking his knuckles?
Yes, that was an interesting one that I heard it, but I completely forgot to write it down. But yes, to the point where she would be asked to crack his knuckles. Like, truly, it really felt like he was just the king of his kingdom, and everybody, including his staff, just did whatever he wanted.
And look, that in and of itself is not a crime, but it tells a lot more of the context and a lot more of what the prosecution is trying to build up to. There was this, alleged criminal enterprise where he was abusing, threatening women, and that everybody was doing his bidding. And, it was all to serve his desires. So I think it just helps tell a little bit more of the story. And speaking of which, now we have to talk about what is a very difficult subject matter, because Mia testified about several sexual assaults, right? And I think those are key to this story. If we're talking about a repeated pattern of abusing women, again, that's part of the racketeering charge, better understanding maybe the sex trafficking counts that's faced, with Cassie Ventura and another victim. What did she say about these alleged sexual assaults?
Well, I do want to give everyone kind of a forewarning that it was really kind of triggering in a sense to listen to all of this, because it wasn't just one time. It was more than once. And she was really struggling to kind of articulate the words as far as just what Diddy allegedly did to her, and she got emotional at points. And I was sitting in the row right behind kind of her support system, and so I saw her support system tearing up while she was giving the testimony. It was really kind of hard to listen to, but I am going to kind of take it one by one as far as just everything that she had went through. So she said there was one time where she was at the Plaza Hotel for Diddy's birthday. It was his 40th birthday, so kind of doing the math, maybe it's around the 2010 time frame-ish, but because Mia was very forthcoming that if there were dates that she didn't remember, she was just kind of generalizing it. But she was also forthcoming that if she didn't remember the year, she didn't remember the year. But we know Diddy's age, so I'm just kind of doing some quick math. But she said that she was even at the Plaza Hotel because she was there for work, and she had been on the job only a few months at this time period, and Diddy was over in the penthouse. Mia was there, and that she still had to stay relatively close to Diddy. But one thing that she was asked was whether or not Cassie was there, and she explained Cassie wasn't there for this incident. And so Diddy had asked Mia, according to her testimony, to speak to her in the kitchen, but he cleared out everyone from the room. That's what she had testified to. And Diddy had allegedly told her that she was doing this good job. She didn't have to go to Malcolm, who's one of the other assistants, for every single question that she had, and so that she could essentially come to Diddy, ask Diddy himself any type of questions that she may have, especially as she's still getting used to the job, because again, this was just a few months after she had started. And so Diddy, I guess, gave her 2 shots for his birthday to kind of cheers to the night. And Mia didn't recall drinking earlier during that birthday party, but remembered after taking these 2 shots that she felt really weird, and that it wasn't like taking 2 normal shots. But she didn't necessarily say that something was put in the shots either, but she said that these 2 shots that she took with him definitely made her feel weird, and said that they hit her kind of hard. And so then all of a sudden Diddy leaned into Mia to kiss her and put his hands up her dress. And again, while she's recalling this, she really is just very very timid while on the stand, really kind of shaky in her voice, very raspy while she's explaining this. And then she said she didn't want Diddy to do that, and that she essentially was just in shock and fear and essentially just froze up because she didn't know what was happening. And she said that even around this time, she looked at Diddy as an older adult, kind of in a way that, he's kind of around her father's age, that type of thing, and that he was essentially the boss or the king and a very powerful person. And so she really just kind of froze in fear, not necessarily knowing what to do. And then somehow, some way, she woke up in a chair, and last place she remembered being was in the kitchen. And so she thought in that particular instance that this was something that would never happen again. She thought that Diddy was just drunk during that night, and that she just was going to take this secret to the grave. She wouldn't tell anybody. And she even thought that Diddy was so drunk and intoxicated that maybe he didn't remember what happened, but also felt like this fell under the confidentiality, and that also played a part into not telling anybody, not going public with this, not going to police with this, because she thought she had to keep it under wraps for under confidentiality. Then she recalled another instance where she was over at Diddy's apartment, because again, everyone, she's a personal assistant, so she says she was there to drop off Diddy's bags, and then Uncle Paulie was downstairs, and he said something to the effect, and Uncle Paulie is one of Diddy's security guards at this point, that Uncle Paulie said something to the effect of, "I've seen this before." And I think Mia felt a little bit uncomfortable by this situation. So she did what she was supposed to do for her job, where Diddy ended up telling Mia to pull something up on the computer. Then Diddy kind of leans in pretty forward, didn't necessarily act on it in that particular instance, but Mia recalled being just very uncomfortable, and that something kind of sounded off alarm bells to her. So she ran to the bathroom, and then Diddy eventually let her leave the apartment. But then as far as the sexual assault has occurred, she recalled 2 more instances. During the second time, Mia was at Diddy's Beverly Grove home, and that Mia didn't have a door to her room because the staff stayed at Diddy's house, but Mia didn't have a lock on the door, I should say, because she wasn't allowed to have a lock on the door because it was Diddy's home. Diddy didn't feel like that his employees should have a lock on the home. But what was interesting, Jesse, is that she explained that the security guards had locks on their doors, but she, however, was specifically told not to have a lock on her door. And so Mia said she was asleep. And again, she's really kind of talking about this very slowly, because this is when she continues to really get kind of emotional here, where she said that she was asleep and she woke up to somebody on top of her. When she was asked who was on top of her, she explained that it was Diddy on top of her. And she said, "I remember that he was using one hand too," and she was kind of speaking pretty slowly, but that Diddy was using one hand to get his pants off and the other hand to put his penis inside of her. And Mia was crying at this point and was explaining that she froze, that she couldn't react because she felt so terrified and confused and scared. She didn't want to be having sexual relations or intimate relationships with Diddy, and that she said it felt really quick, but also it felt like forever in the same point. And so while I'm kind of hearing this testimony going on, I'm looking over to the defense table to get Diddy's reaction a little bit, and I can see Diddy just kind of sitting there looking in Mia's direction. Then next thing I see, he's kind of jotting notes down, presumably to get to his defense attorneys to use for their cross-examination. But what I did see, though, Jesse, was the jury all looking at Mia. This was not a point where they were doing the tennis match or anything like that. They all had their eyes, from what I could see, on Mia while she was explaining this, because she was very emotional at this point. And then there was a third time. She said Mia was at Diddy's other home, and that she was in the closet, and Diddy came in and had his penis out and grabbed Mia's head and put his penis in her mouth. And Mia explained that she was just frozen during that moment too, because every instance she was recalling these sexual assaults, she was explaining that she had froze, she was shocked, she was terrified, and always thinking the last time was the last incident that would happen like this. But according to her, these were just one of many. And so she said she felt like trash after this. She didn't want to be giving Diddy oral sex. Again, her support system in the gallery while she's recalling this moment in her life is crying, where I can see in the gallery. And Mia did explain that those were the those weren't the only instances, that there was another part where Mia went to the bathroom. Diddy was standing right there. Diddy pushed her back into the bathroom. Mia was trying to escape, but she was trying to squiggle out, and that she just essentially felt pretty unsafe, but doesn't remember necessarily just everything that had happened in this particular instance in the bathroom. But Mia explained that she never wanted to have sex with Diddy. She never initiated to have sex with Diddy. And she said all of these different times where he allegedly sexually assaulted her, Cassie was never there. She was asked, was Diddy seeing other people? Did he have other girlfriends? And Mia responded that he was seeing other people and did have other girlfriends, but that they weren't there either to stop any of this. And so she said that they were always so random and sporadic that I didn't think that this would happen again. And she always thought that the last time would be the last time and that these continued to happen. And after they occurred, Mia said that she just kind of kept it moving and that she just acted like these things and these incidents didn't happen, and she just kind of got right back to work. And she was asked, was Diddy on drugs when he was allegedly sexually assaulting you? And Mia responded for those particular incidents that he wasn't on drugs or didn't appear to be on drugs. And so she said she didn't tell him no, but always tried to kind of squiggle her way out of this. And she said, as far as her explanation on why she felt like she couldn't say no, she says, I couldn't tell him no to a sandwich. I thought I would be a target if she said no to him. I thought he would fire me and mess with my future. He would make me look like a threat. I knew his power. I didn't want to lose everything that I worked for, and I didn't think I could ever work in this industry again.
I think that goes, again, back to Cassie Ventura, who, there's that sex trafficking charge with respect to. And I think this idea of why didn't she step away? Why didn't she fight back? Why didn't she say no? To hear another alleged victim say that, that's a strength in numbers. She also testified, my understanding is that Combs threw things at her, right?
So Mia recalled that Diddy threw a number of different items at her, including food, a phone, even a computer at her. Mia said as far as Diddy throwing food at her, this specifically was a spaghetti bowl that Diddy threw at her. She said that Mia went to the room because she needed to use the restroom. She was on her menstrual cycle at the time, and that Diddy was upset by this to the point where Mia had explained while on the witness stand she was bleeding and blood was dripping down her leg, and Diddy threw spaghetti at her, and that this bowl didn't necessarily hit her, but she ran out of Diddy's home and escaped by going to a hotel. But she had explained that nobody intervened during this situation. She said she told HR of Bad Boy and that person being bossed up, and that she ended up being suspended without pay because Puff is the boss and that's what he wanted. Then there was another incident where Diddy threw a computer at Mia because they were on this movie set. Diddy was complaining about the Wi-Fi, according to Mia. So Mia ran to find a production assistant or a PA to kind of figure out what was going on. And so Mia returned to Diddy to kind of explain what the situation was, but Diddy didn't even listen to what she had to say and just threw a computer at her. Those were just some of the times that Diddy would throw things at her. And Mia is getting pretty emotional just kind of recalling these incidents here too, where she said, I would always wonder what I did to make him so upset, and that she would get really hurt by his actions towards her. Then she recalled another instance where they were in Turks and Caicos and Diddy dumped ice in a bucket onto her. Then Diddy smashed her phone, and that Mia ended up jumping on Diddy's back essentially to get her phone back, and then Diddy threw her into the pool. And so these were just one of many instances, because there was another incident where she had explained that Diddy slammed her arm into the door too. This was over at Revolt, that Diddy was kind of in a mood, and that Diddy was texting Derek Roche, Diddy's stylist, what kind of mood Diddy was in. And then Diddy all of a sudden took off with her phone and took off with her phone to the bathroom, then slammed her arm into the bathroom door kind of on purpose. She initially thought like maybe this was an accident, maybe he didn't mean to do it, but she said he did it again. And she thought at that point her arm was broken, but she said essentially that she had a bunch of bruises on her arms, and that Diddy had even threatened and said things along the lines of that he has compromising photos of Mia that he had taken from her phone, and that Mia had kind of ran to get her phone back. And so we see an exhibit, and this was an email from Mia to Tony Fletcher, who was then the chief of staff, as well as Shannon, who was an executive assistant. So this happened on April 10th of 2013, and Mia had wrote, "Puff took my phone and left me on the street in Hollywood. My phone is in his car. Not sure when/if he'll be back." And Tony responded, "Are you okay?" Mia said, "I found revolt because I was lost and barefoot because she took off her heels in order to chase after Diddy, and she was just barefoot in the street, essentially." Tony asked what had happened, and Mia responded, "Well, this is definitely an in-person story. Anyone want to pick me up from the studio? I don't know where he is." And even while Mia was on the stand, Jesse, she was really kind of explaining that in that particular instance, too, that she was terrified and felt humiliated and embarrassed by the situation, and explained that she didn't know what she did to deserve this treatment from somebody who's supposed to be her boss.
So, other than the fact that it was a former employee, and that is very important for, as we mentioned, the forced labor allegation as part of racketeering, and overall this theme and narrative that might not even fit into a specific predicate crime, but goes to this idea of a criminal enterprise and all of these things Combs was allegedly a part of. I think the same thing with Kid Cudi and the alleged break-in in his home. She also testified about Cassie, and I think was brought on as a corroborating witness for Cassie. And my understanding is she testified about witnessing physical abuse of Cassie Ventura, and there was one particular reference to Prince, right? A Prince party. Can you talk to us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, well, we first heard about this party and what happened at this party while Cassie was testifying. She was essentially saying that Diddy didn't want her to go to this party, but she ended up going with one of her girlfriends to this party. Diddy comes, gets super upset at Cassie and the friend, and essentially they both ran outside of Prince's home, and Cassie fell into the bushes. But hearing Mia's perspective, because Mia revealed that she was the friend that went over with Cassie to Prince's house, that she was explaining that the night before that there was kind of this award show, and that Diddy told Mia to stay with Cassie at a hotel, and that Diddy was going to be with his kids around this time. So she didn't expect that Diddy would be going to this party, because he said that he was going to be with his children. And so Mia had said, "We debated like little kids, should we sneak out of this hotel to go party with Prince or go to this party at Prince's house?" And then Diddy comes to this party, and Mia said that she locks eyes with Diddy, and she essentially says, "Oh crap." And so she said that she and Cassie ran out of Prince's home. They hid in the bushes, but Diddy ended up catching up to Cassie and had her on the ground. And he was about to start attacking her out in the public, essentially. And that security did step up, and they did intervene in this particular situation. Mia had explained that she did that HR had called Mia and told her that she was going to be suspended without pay after this incident. So just another point of where Mia would do something that Diddy didn't like or didn't want, and then there would be punishment and retribution to her, that being that she would either have her job threatened or that she would just essentially be suspended from her job and not be paid for it either.
And she also discussed injuries to Cassie at Cannes, right?
So the prosecution was asking Mia just about all the bruises that she saw in Cassie as one of her friends and also as Diddy's assistant at the time. And she said she saw everything from a busted lip to black eyes to even bruises on her body. And so then we see an exhibit photo of Cassie on the red carpet at Cannes, this beautiful film festival over in France. It's really this big coveted event. Cassie's on the red carpet in this beautiful dress. However, according to Mia, around that time, Cassie had a busted lip and that she used makeup in order to cover up her injuries. Mia had explained, "I don't remember the other ones as far as just the type of injuries that she sustained, she being Cassie, but she was definitely injured during this particular red carpet." And so Mia was explaining that Cassie took this audio recording and she sounded super panicked in this incident, and that Diddy could be heard on this audio. Now, we didn't hear the audio, but Mia was describing it as Diddy was cursing on this audio at Cassie, and his tone was pretty angry. And so what ended up happening is that Diddy, Cassie, and Mia all went to a movie premiere, and the movie premiere was for Brad Pitt's movie. And so while at this movie premiere, Mia was explaining that Diddy was kind of digging his nails into Cassie's arms and talking in this really clenched voice at her, kind of in this very mad and angry tone, while at this movie premiere, while other people, probably hundreds of other people, are inside this movie theater. And so she said those were just some of the times that Cassie was injured and then would have to go onto a red carpet, and then more often than not that she was covering her injuries with a bunch of different makeup, and that Diddy had told Mia at this point to take care of Cassie. And Mia ended up getting Cassie this Artica gel, which is essentially for bruises, but Diddy told Cassie and Mia that they couldn't leave the hotel together after that.
This is why I think this is important, right? So the more they can build up that he was controlling Cassie Ventura, right? Sex trafficking, force, fraud, coercion to induce her into these sexual episodes in different places, right? A travel component. I think that adds to it, right? You know, digging the nails into it. And then if you have employees that are allegedly covering up the bruises or allegedly covering up his crimes, that goes further into the racketeering criminal enterprise part. Did she also testify about Combs controlling Cassie's career?
So yes, and this was kind of towards the start of her testimony when they were really kind of laying the foundation of just what she had witnessed while kind of working with Diddy while he was still in a relationship with Cassie. And so we see this exhibit photo, and this again at the beginning of her testimony, where Mia referred to Cassie as Cass, and that the two are still best friends together. But even describing their relationship, and that being the relationship between Diddy and Cassie, Mia described it as a cycle of highs and lows. It was equal and unequal. It was toxic. It was abusive. And abusive, she meant towards Cassie specifically, but that Diddy, and this was something that a lot of witnesses have testified to, where Diddy kind of was in charge of her career, and he was the one who had signed her over to Bad Boy. And so Mia had explained that Diddy had the final decisions of everything, where it comes to Cassie's music being put out, the studio time that she used, her appearance, her public appearance. And so then we see kind of this exhibit, and this being from April 12th of 2012, where Cassie sent this email to Diddy, to other executives, including Harv Pierre, Capricorn Clark, and James Cruz, who used to manage Diddy. This came from the Veronica Bang email, which is one of Cassie's aliases. And Cassie wrote in this email, "I've been informed that I can't perform on Monday due to overage of costs. I have worked very hard but can't be supported." And that email went by so fast, so I wasn't able to get the tail end of it. But I did see Diddy's response, and Diddy responded that, "Make sure you Slevin," and Slevin is, I guess, an executive who works at BET, "so you don't embarrass yourself." And Cassie kind of hit back, or not hit back, but she kind of clapped back and said, "Well, no label support, no show, no." But Cassie ended up performing at this particular show. But even as far as Cassie wanting to get into film endeavors, that everything kind of had to go through Diddy as far as what film she could do and what he would be able to sign off to. Something that Deontay kind of pointed out when he was testifying today and even yesterday, where Mia was explaining that she drove Cassie over to set. She ran lines with Cassie. Cassie started acting around the 2015 time frame, and that Diddy would even visit her on set, and that production themselves for the movie or whatever film she was participating in would get super nervous and apprehensive because Diddy was asking all these questions and essentially kind of trying to control what Cassie would look, do, say, that type of thing. And that, again, Diddy had final say on Cassie's appearance when it comes to her hair, her nails, her outfits, etc. So I'm sure under the cross-examination, they're going to kind of bring home the point, well, maybe it was because he was a label executive, and that's why he was so particular about how his artists would look, that type of thing. But according to Deontay, according to Cassie, according to even Mia, this was kind of a sticking point, too, where Diddy kind of controlled every single aspect, had final say over how Cassie would look and how she would appear in public and private and those types of things.
Let me just read a portion of the indictment to make sense of this. This is in the opening part when they talk about racketeering conspiracy. So we all understand why this is relevant. It says, at all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs engaged in a persistent and pervasive pattern of abuse toward women and other individuals. This abuse was at times verbal, emotional, physical, and sexual. And then it goes on to say that at times, Combs and others acting in his direction made arrangements for women and commercial sex workers to fly to Combs' location. And Combs ensured participation from the women by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation and violence. Sometimes it's important to go back to the charging instrument to understand exactly where this all falls in line. And before we wrap things up, going back to Kid Cudi, who I keep saying is one of the pivotal witnesses in this case, because I believe his testimony helps support at least two of the underlying predicate crimes: arson, his car being torched, and kidnapping. You know, his testimony supporting the idea that Capricorn Clark was kidnapped by Sean Combs. He came up again too, right?
Yeah, he came up again, and I thought, what does Mia kind of have to do with this incident? But really, she didn't have anything to do with this incident because she was on a flight or trying to go to New York, I guess just for some business. But she said on December 22nd of 2011, and that was the day of the break-in, that Mia said she was initially at Diddy's home in Los Angeles, but she explained that the mood on that particular day was dark. The energy felt really bad. It was different than normal, and that she said she was used to seeing Puff mad, but this time he was really mad, but more so upset, according to her. She said that Diddy told her that he had found out that Cassie was talking to someone else. Who was that other person? That being Scott Mescudi, aka Kid Cudi. Mia had explained that Diddy appeared heartbroken by this situation, and that, again, normally he was angry and aggressive, but this time he felt a little more ominous. And so she explained that she never witnessed Cassie do something to make Diddy this upset, because even when she was recalling just the incidents of physical violence toward Cassie by Diddy, that Cassie wouldn't fight back, that she would essentially just try to kind of like pretty much like kind of defend her body, but never would fight back. But in this particular instance, Mia recalled that Cassie made Diddy upset really by this. And so Mia said that she was bracing herself for something really bad to happen. And that really kind of stuck out to me, especially given what ended up happening just a couple weeks later. But Mia said that she left to go to New York. However, she reached out to D-Rock and then Sienna because she was worried about Sienna, who was, I guess, a new assistant around this time, kind of navigating what might have been to come on her own. And then she said that she was worried about Cassie and Puffy. And so she reached out to D-Rock because D-Rock was kind of like a big brother to her. And she knew that D-Rock and Puffy, as she calls him, were very close. And so then we see an email thread between Mia and D-Rock on this particular day where Mia wrote to D-Rock, "I'm currently at Neil's. I got to talk to you once I'm there. Love you." And she explained that she says love you and signs off love you in all of her emails. And then D-Rock said something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm going back to the crib." Mia responded, "I'm super worried about P. I have no clue what's going on, and I really don't care to know the details since they'll always usually be the same thing." And so essentially Mia was just kind of trying to explain that she didn't know what was about to happen. She didn't know what was to come, but she apparently was just so worried about what Puff might have done and just his tone and how he was appearing over at the house before she had left on her over to New York, that essentially she wanted to kind of put D-Rock on radar that something bad might happen. And so as far as just everything that she had entailed into that particular email, wasn't able to grab just every single bit of it, but she said that she had even reached out to Puff too, Puff aka Diddy, on that same day where Mia had wrote in this particular email about to take off, and she told Diddy, "Love you," and Diddy responded, "Love you too." And I guess this was something Diddy had said to Mia all the time. But it's interesting that she recalled this particular moment and that she had these kind of emails to back it up because she could feel that something bad might have been coming and might have been happening.
By the way, real quick, before I let you go, Elizabeth, did Mia look at Combs at any point during her testimony? Did she look over at him?
No. not from what I could see. All I could see was her. She had something in her hand. I couldn't tell if it was like maybe a rosary. There were points where it was a napkin because she was wiping her tears because of her emotional testimony. But from what I could see, she really wasn't paying any type of attention or mind to him, because I think she was just that nervous about just recalling all these things that had happened to her. Even when the jury was getting up and getting down to go and take their breaks, that type of thing, she didn't even look at the jury. And other witnesses, even Cassie herself, has looked at the jury while they exit the jury box. But for Mia particularly, she really, really and notably kept her head down at all times while testifying today.
So the direct examination is going to continue tomorrow, right? Do we know how long it's going to go? Do we know how long the cross-examination is going to go?
Well, it's unclear how long the cross-examination is going to go, because there are times where I think it's going to be a quick cross-examination and then it takes more than an hour. But given that Mia was on the stand the majority of even today, and that she'll still continue her direct testimony even until tomorrow, the judge already said to everyone, including the jury, that we're expected to stay at least until 4 o'clock today, because before we were getting out around 3 o'clock. But it seems that for the most part, the cross-examination, once the direct is done, probably in the morning, that it could take the rest of the day and possibly even go until Monday, but we'll see.
Elizabeth Millner, thank you so much as always. I know today, like all the days, is difficult testimony to listen to and jot down and repeat, but we really, really appreciate you. And as always, thank you so much for the great work.
Thanks, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.